Okay, let's get this thing going. So we've been gone. We've been gone for a few weeks, and so long, yeah. So I'm glad that we're back. With me today is my co-moderator and my law partner and my little brother, Court Rich. So thanks for doing this again. And Jim Belfiore, who is the founder and president of Belfiore Real Estate Consulting. Everybody knows Jim. When he speaks on residential real estate, the market listens all across the country. The premier guy here in Arizona. And thanks, Jim. He's also my business partner in The Deal Maker, which is a daily publication. And we've been doing that for how many years? I don't even know.
Well, at least 5 or 6, right?
At least 5 or 6, yeah. So thanks for that, Jim. You're an awesome business partner, just a wonderful person. And Mark Tarbell, award-winning chef and owner of Tarbell's. He's amazing. You all have been nourished by Mark, I know, and gosh, Mark's in the thick of everything now, being, I think, our most popular restaurateur in Arizona and having all these regulations. So I can't wait to talk to Mark. And Chris Grogan, partner at Dorado Holdings, top-notch real estate investment firm with a serious history in Arizona, one of Arizona's largest landowners with assets exceeding $1 billion. So thanks, Chris, for being on. And then last but certainly not least, an angel, really, Dr. Sonal Haerter. She's an internal medicine physician at St. Joe's Medical Center, and she's returning to our panel backed by popular demand, as is Jim and Mark. She also teaches at the University of Arizona College of Medicine and Osteopathic Medicine. She's won Phoenix Top Doctor 6 times. So thank you for being here. We've had a lot happen in the last 2 weeks. And we want to talk about that. But first, I want to recognize somebody who's, gosh, the most important guy I've ever known in my life. And that's my dad, Jeff Rich, who's turning 75 today. And why don't you wave, Jeff Rich? Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So maybe if you guys—
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. He truly is amazing. He's also Court's dad, by the way, but I'm taking credit right now for wishing him happy birthday. And if you put in the chat, if you know my dad, you would put in the chat all sorts of nice things. If you don't know my dad, you can just fake it, because anything good is my dad. So just you know, say nice things and make him feel good, because 75 and it's a socially distant sort of birthday. So okay, let's go to Mark.
And he got all dressed up today for his birthday party, apparently, too.
Oh yeah, what's he got going there? Yeah, well, he's a travel t-shirt guy. He wears travel t-shirts all the time when he's not wearing his lawyer outfit, which is a family profession, apparently. Anyhow, okay, Mark. So wow, you got to open. And I want to hear how that, first of all, you dominated on the takeout and the delivery of just phenomenal meals. I mean, you spun that business model into something really cool. And then you got to open, and I mean, I was there, I was outside because you were so, you know, you dominated. And now the governor tells us that you're at 50%. Give us kind of the situation.
Yeah, we're open, we're closed, we're open, we're closed, and we're sort of open. I want to get a big banner outside my restaurant saying we're open, sort of. But really what it is, fundamentally, you know, in our industry, we're kind of a day-to-day business, very reactionary business anyway, but these have really pushed us extremely. So we did open, we did very well with to-go catering, and then our staff kind of reviewed it 2 weeks ago and decided to go back for July to go and delivery. We did so well at it. Frankly, it was one of my best friends, Joe Polish, calls it ELF theory, you know, easy, lucrative, and fun. Whereas the other, staying open sort of with lots of dynamics and pressure, while we did very well, we were at capacity, and I found myself going home at night and going, we did 60% of capacity tonight. Never in my life would those words have been happy. So, you know, really I decided, you know, what am I doing this for? It was, you know, divisive, distracted, you know, expensive, stressful. And it really wasn't a business that I enjoy doing when we can normally get into that business. So we went back to go and delivery. we aren't alone in that, but it was only done for reasons out of strength that we enjoyed. Our staff really liked it. It gives us a certain amount of freedom in the summer. Everyone can take their PTO and time off. By the way, most people are away now in our community anyway. And so for us, it was just an opportunity to retool it and come back strong as soon as we can do a little bit better than 50%.
Got it. So let me understand. So before the announcement yesterday that it was good, that restaurants need to go to 50%, you were already doing the takeout. You had already gone to takeout.
Yes, we reverted back to it. Yes.
And that was just simply like economics doesn't make any sense because most of your customers are out of town in the summer anyhow, and
well, mostly not economically so much. Mostly just what business are we good at? What business are we in? How do we want the brand and image to be represented? Truthfully, the culture of our team and staff, we talked a lot to our staff about it, and it was a decision made just to preserve our morale culture. And internally, we've had no COVID test positive here. We've had no cases, but we also know that predictably, a lot of our country is going to get affected by it, so we can't be immune to it. So it just put us in a more offensive position. We were in control of it. We liked the business we were doing before, and yes, it's summer, so we figured, it seems like a very reasonable thing to do.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark, for keeping that going, because I don't cook and you're amazing. So, hey, Jim, let's talk a little bit about, you're probably the most optimistic person on this panel in terms of residential housing being something that's really a bright light right now. Can you talk to us about what's going on in the residential housing?
Sure. On the optimism side, obviously, Jordan, you caught me on the right day. Because a couple of months ago or a few months ago, we were staring a pretty deep, valley in the face. A lot of uncertainty, and we came out actually, looking back at I think the first or the second Zoom call you had, we were.
Jim, you're a little quiet, so you need to yell. So just yell, like anger therapy, baby.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
He's so optimistic, we had to turn him down a little bit just to.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so things seem to be propped up right now. It's much healthier than we expected 3 or 4 months ago. 3 or 4 months ago, demand fell sort of instantaneously as the government shut things down, and housing was able to stay open. Builders started working through their backlogs. Traffic was off. It really started to go up in May and into early June. And just in the past 2 weeks, mortgage interest rates have fallen pretty dramatically. So we've seen mortgage interest rates, if you walk into a sales office and you're looking for a $300,000 house and applying for a conventional loan and you have really good credit, you're able to get a 2.8% mortgage interest rate, which is the lowest we've ever seen in the history of the United States. And that's really created a surge in buyers. And we've seen sales move upward in the past 30 days by 28%. That's really data that's from 3 days ago. So data from the end of the first week, early second week of June through early July through the 7th, 28% jump. It's the most significant jump in demand that we've seen since we started business 15 years ago. We've seen 9 new home communities sell out in Queen Creek here in the past week, and only 2 new communities open. So we're starting to see sort of a supply crunch. Inventory, builder inventory, speculative inventory is depleted. MLS supply data, which we get from the Cromford report, great source if you don't have a source for resale data, but that supply is really at lows not seen since the third quarter of 2005. And so the situation's turned around significantly just in the past month and a half to 2 months. And I'm really optimistic about the future. I'm a little concerned about where prices are going, because when you have such a constrained market and you have very, very high demand and a limitation on what can be built because of labor, you know, you're going to see price increases. In fact, home sales that sold from June 9th through July 8th through the MLS, the prices increased. The actual sales, the prices increased 5%. New homes are increasing at a percentage of anywhere from 0.3% to 1% on a monthly basis, depending upon the community. Incentives are going away. You know, that's really the only bad news for buyers, but affordability is at all-time high still because we have low mortgage interest rates. It's a positive situation presently for the housing industry.
Great. Well, we needed a little positive situation. So let's maybe contrast that. Dr. Haerter, yeah, so tell us, right before we got on, I said, how are you doing? And you started off, and maybe you should tell everybody, because it's pretty dramatic what you guys are dealing with as medical professionals, and really are angels in this whole thing. So thank you for that.
Jordan, you're right. I think I'm probably the most optimistic analyst today in this session, but I needed good news from Jim because
We're having some hard hearing problem with you. Yeah,
Sounds like maybe someone else has got
it's
some
not
background.
muted. Yeah, everybody mute.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, let's try it. Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Good.
So I think I'm probably the most pessimistic panelist today, unfortunately, but I think, so I work in an outpatient clinic. My husband works in the hospital, taking care of COVID patients almost on a daily basis. Can you hear me?
Hey, Watha, can you help with this situation? Or maybe are the other panelists just mute? Panelists, mute yourself first. Go ahead.
Is it better? Is it better?
Yeah, go ahead and try.
So I work in an outpatient clinic, meaning I do outpatient internal medicine. My husband does COVID patients almost on a daily basis, both in the ICU and in the regular hospitals. And I can tell you from where I am, Arizona is not looking good. We are, and I have some statistics that I wrote down just so that I am not going off the numbers, but we are about the first state in the country to start a crisis care protocol. And what that means is now each ICU or each hospital gets to decide what treatments are given to what patients, because about 1 in 5 inpatient beds is occupied by COVID-19 patients, right? So what that means is when people are coming to the hospital now, we have 90% capacity that's already taken up. So we have to decide who gets treated and who doesn't, because we don't have enough beds. We don't have enough ICU ventilators, which is the breathing machine. And so we get to decide if somebody who is an end-stage dialysis patient, do they get the same treatment as someone who is perhaps a little bit healthier than them? And these are some decisions as a medical community we've never had to make. Now we have to decide who gets what treatment, because we don't have enough supplies, enough beds, enough breathing machines. I spoke to a colleague of mine last night who was sobbing on the phone because that was his 43rd day of work in the hospital, 43. And he gets this weekend off, which is a Saturday and Sunday, and he goes back to work on Monday for another long stretch. And my hospital just sent out emails asking all of us to work in the hospital. And I have not worked in the hospital for over 10 years. So I do only office medicine, but they are pulling all of us in. So some of our inpatient doctors get a small break, like a full 4-day break to go back to work. So, you know what you see on TV where nurses are exhausted and crying, where doctors are coming from out of state, that is all true. That is not exaggerated, that is not dramatic, that is not by any means hyped up. that's the reality of the hospitals right now.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, and gosh, I don't even know how to respond to that, except thank you, and just take care of yourself. Chris, let's talk a little bit about, and we'll come back to the doctor. Chris, let's talk about land sales. So El Dorado, one of the largest landowners in Arizona.
By the way, George, nice segue. That's a tough segue, and you pulled it off well.
Yeah. Really appreciate you coming to me next, Jordan.
That was the ultimate awkward segue. Yeah. How do you transition? Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. Transition from, yeah, right. Okay. To land sales. Good. Just be direct and get on with it. So, okay, Chris, what are you seeing in the market right now?
So right now we're still in a little bit of a waiting period. We're waiting for a couple of different reasons. With El Dorado specifically, we don't have anything that is shovel ready in terms of it's going to come out of the ground tomorrow in terms of putting lots on the ground. We've still got a few entitlement pieces or a few utility pieces that you guys talked on the last call that need to fall into place. But we do have a lot of lots coming out in the next 6 months. So we're very optimistic in terms of what Jim Belfiore is reporting, what Nathan Associates and Greg Vogel of Land Advisors, what they're reporting. So we're very optimistic and we're full speed ahead. What I can say from a COVID standpoint is we took the approach of a 60-day punt. Most people asked us for 120, and I think anyone that's worked with El Dorado understands that, Mike doesn't let us just kick everything really far down the road. He says, check in every 30 days. And if it takes 15 amendments, we'll do 15 amendments. But if it goes faster, we'll go faster. So
and we'll get your money at each of those amendments, right? We'll get your money at each of those amendments. As you should.
There's plenty of lawyering fees that go into those amendments as well. They don't let me write them yet. But our first closing this year was scheduled for April, and I can say successfully that did close June 1st. It was only 59 lots. It was in our Meridian Estates Spur Cross development in Queen Creek. It was the last parcel of single-family lots in there, so it was a very down the middle of the fairway deal in that regard. But it was a switcheroo in terms of who closed it. One home builder was set to close, and kind of coming into the days of the final closing date, another builder closed it. So we've been flexible in that regard. And I think Jim had talked previously in a different segment a lot about the different strategies different builders have taken. So we've seen certain builders, well, let me go back to my analogy. We punted the ball. It was a 60-day punt. We got a great punt off. It was 7-second hang time. We went 80 yards. The bad news, that was the good news. The bad news is we punted and we're now on defense. We weren't sure when the ball landed, was the home builder going to take a knee and just assess what they're going to do on offense, or were they going to try to return it for a touchdown? We've seen some builders take off once they caught that ball and go for it, and others have taken a knee and fair caught it, and they're just assessing where we're at. So we see two different tracks of builders right now. A lot of them are trying to work more towards the Steve Hilton optimistic of find lots and keep moving. But we're working with everybody just to kind of figure out where they're at and figure out the timeline that we need to continue to deliver lots, because we've got in total 60 some odd plus 1,000 acres. So we're looking to sell. We're not looking to sit on land for forever.
And I like that you got the sports analogy in there, because I think I can see the frustration with especially all the men on the call. We miss that. Okay, thanks, Chris. Maybe I want to talk to Dr. Haerter and Mark about the restaurant regulations and just and maybe even more broadly the regulations that Arizona has enacted and hasn't enacted. And is that why we're in this position? And maybe Dr. Haerter, if you want to speak to that first. And yes, I did just do that to my hair, which means drink. for some of those parties that are going on apparently today. I guess, yes, that was a sign. Oh, and then Mark just sipped, which also apparently means drink. So, oh boy, and now Mark is, wait, what was that, Mark? Hey, come on now, wait, it's what happens in a restaurant life at 12:22. You're swigging, what was that?
It was just a bottle of Chardonnay. Look, just for everyone, you're recording this. There was a cork in it. I was kidding.
Oh. There was a cork in it. Okay. So the cork comes out at 1, or what happens when the cork comes? Okay. Fantastic. All right. Yeah, Doctor, what do you think? I mean, did we do a poor job on the reopening, or what happened here?
I do think we did not take some of the statistics coming out of New York and that were coming out of some other countries. I don't think we took those strictly enough in the beginning of the whole pandemic. So I think where we kind of lacked a little bit is making masks mandatory. I cannot, a simple measure like that would have spread this infection a little bit more slowly. There's no denying that this infection is widespread in the community. And I don't think anybody's saying that we can completely avoid this infection. Most people who get this infection will do well and will recover. But the problem is we have enough people who were not masked. Masking in Arizona was very spotty. It was not consistent. It was not mandatory. People who are not touched by this were not taking it as seriously. And as an effect of that, we have enough sick people who are now in the hospital, clogging the hospital system. And I think this could have been prevented had we been very strict about wearing masks, as simple as that, just a simple mask going out. Also, I think maintaining very strict regulations about public gathering. I mean, Jordan, it was very disheartening for me to come back from the hospital, drive in a neighborhood, and at times see a gathering of 25 people in the midst of this. And so this was going on for a long time. And I think the idea is we have to create a healthy regulations for people because, you know, isolation is also not good for mental health. So we have seen increased anxiety and depression and insomnia, and with financial losses, with relationship stressors. I think this is a big chaotic situation, but I think the economy is impacted the more we keep, you know, people out there. I think what people don't understand is you go out there and your hospitals get clogged, you're very close to being shut down again. We don't want to go through that repeatedly because that doesn't help the hospital, that doesn't help the economy, and that doesn't help people in general. So I do think not masking, not making masks mandatory is a big mistake. Not actually keeping strict regulations about gatherings was a big mistake. I think we kind of jumped back a little too quickly. Maybe slowing down a little bit, that would have been a good strategy. But you know, sometimes hindsight, we can come up with so many strategies.
What would you do? What would be sort of the next step you would take? I assume, you know, shutting restaurants to half capacity probably isn't like the thing that would be high on your list as, you know, immediate next step. But if you could do one or two things, what would it be?
I think one is making masks mandatory no matter where and what is going on. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions about wearing masks and getting oxygen levels low. Those are not correct. I wear my N95 for 8 hours at work with few breaks in between, and I'm fine. So wearing masks is number one. And number two, I think based on what our hospitals do from now onwards, like what is our situation in the intensive care units, how full are we in the hospitals in general, based on that, the openings have to be slow and steady because there's just no way for us to accommodate patients that are coming in. And COVID does not necessarily mean we don't have other people with other medical conditions. We still have people who are coming in with strokes and heart attacks. And you know, the other aspect of COVID-19 that we are now seeing is people who have recovered have a lot of neurological problems, cognitive problems. People are coming out with memory deficits. I mean, it's not just the respiratory disease that you see on television. There's a new article that just got published in New England Journal of Medicine, which talks about several months after where people are having cognition issues. These are people who are young, who are relatively healthy, but had COVID-19, got out of the hospital, but are really having a lot of impact moving forward. So really, if we want to get back, we have to do the slow and steady, keeping the hospital numbers, in mind.
Thanks, Doctor. Mark, what are your thoughts on this? I just don't know how a restaurant can operate. I mean, you've got a really unique situation in that you've built an amazing business. You have a following. People will order your stuff, though. You've built this amazing online. You can have it delivered and all this kind of thing. But how does that work? You're still paying your staff, I assume, at the same levels, and you're supposed to go to 50%. How do people survive aside from dipping in your own savings?
Well, I think that's what most people are doing, including us. I mean, having some runway helps, having a staff that's really dedicated and is willing to be flexible. For us, it's all about, the cycle, how long it is. I mean, in some ways for us in the restaurant business in Arizona, we all expect to be slower in the summer. So the problem is for most restaurants, all the money that you make in the winter generally goes to support your summer. So there's going to be a lot of stress in our industry locally. Even with people that, took the help from PPP and whatnot, that money runs out eventually. And there's obligations to that. So I think, what it comes down to is, I agree with the doctor. I think masks, that is widely reported to be helpful if everyone's wearing masks, not just one side of it. The challenge for us was, our staff was all wearing masks. We were doing everything, talking to our health professionals and really almost running it like a hospital without hospital beds, UV light, waving everything. And then in the end, and doing the best we can with that. And then having people come in wearing masks into the door and then taking them off in the restaurant, it's problematic table by table. Some people are of the mind that masks shouldn't be worn at all, can't eat and drink with a mask on, of course. And then there's a lot of judgment around that. So, for me, and also being limited to 50%, I think it's just unsustainable for most restaurants to do that. We could have done it, but we just didn't like the environment that we were creating. Plus, there's just inherent risk in dealing with the public in these times. So we were just being ultra cautious. That there was nothing other than just being ultra conservative and having the ability to do it.
So do you think when this all shakes out that we have just far, far less restaurateurs, or what?
Yes, unless there's something that happens. I mean, obviously it depends when and how long, right? So the things that I'm looking at, if I can take some time, or the two things that bring people in Arizona back to their homes here are weather and school. So the school openings, whenever that is going to have, and how they open is going to have a big impact on the economy in general, but certainly people coming back home. Heat is always the same. It's about the middle of October, maybe a little bit before. But those are the two things that bring people home and bring people that have homes here from other places. So for us in the restaurant business, those are two things that if they change or they're adversely affected, it's gonna really change how we recover as an industry.
Makes sense. Well, we know our weather will get better, so at least we've got one of those two things. And maybe Jim can comment on the. I'm wondering on home buyers. Are we seeing a lot, or do you have any sort of data that would suggest that we're seeing a lot of people moving here from these other states that are much more densely populated?
I think it's a little bit early. I think the information I would give is kind of anecdotal. The demand that we've experienced in the last month, again, anecdotally from the mouths of salespeople really to you, is that, some of the people that are buying today are people that otherwise would have purchased during the spring. Our heaviest demand is experienced from February through mid to late May. That was interrupted really during the heaviest period of time from mid-March till the end of April would probably be our heaviest demand period in any given year, and that was interrupted. So some of the buyers today are people that would have been purchasers a little bit earlier, And then some of the buyers are people that are sort of being pulled forward. So we're seeing people that probably wouldn't have been purchasers until later this year or next year, and they're stretching to go out today because affordability is significantly greater on a monthly payment basis. You know, the housing prices are higher, but payments are lower because mortgage interest rates are so low today. The other interesting thing, Jordan, I think, is that when we look at active adult sales, age-restricted sales, commonly age-restricted sales are really heavy from November through really April. And we're seeing about a 40% bump up in active adult demand here over the past 30 days relative to the same 30-day period a year ago. So we're seeing a lot more age-restricted type buyers coming to the market. I think a lot of those are people that live here full-time. And because it's really the only way I can explain it. People are, you don't have, as Mark noted, and as we know from living here, people don't come vacation here largely, particularly older folks don't come here and purchase in the middle of summer.
So you're saying age-restricted people are going, hey, I need to live in a community that doesn't have a bunch of young people who are going out to bars and infecting me?
Yeah, well, in age-restricted communities. So, you know, my point is that, you know, generally operators of age-restricted communities, our biggest builders here, Shea, Pulte, Meritage, Robeson, they all have very large active adult communities, from Trilogies to Pebble Creek. Taylor Morrison's obviously in the game now with AV Home. If you look at the sales within those communities, it's kind of curious, but sales have increased. You know, they're up about 40% relative to the same period a year ago if you look at the last 30 days. So it's kind of interesting. You know, I think mortgage interest rates, a lot of those folks don't have mortgages.
There he is.
Depending upon the community, but a lot of those folks are coming out and purchasing today too. So demand is up across the board. I did an interview this morning for Mike Sunix, you know, our guy who does Dealmaker, and we were talking about you know, where the demand is up and what price points. Earlier in the pandemic, the buyers were largely folks that were shopping in the 200 to mid 300,000s. That's where the heaviest demand was. Certainly that's still the heaviest demand, but today we're seeing demand very heavy, up to $1 million in the East Valley. We just surveyed Gilbert. I'll point out a great new community, master plan community that Maracay Homes opened up just a few months ago. You may know it, it's Waterston. They have 3 product lines. They're gonna expand and have a couple of others, very large farm parcel in the East Valley. They do a great, tremendous job with development and amenities. They've had 70 sales in a 30-day period in price points that, you know, when you add in options and upgrades and lot premiums, people are closing at a low of $500,000, $550,000 up to $900,000 in Gilbert, Arizona, 70 home sales in 30 days. So, you know, I think people they are buying into the mortgage interest rate. You know, that's really what's driving demand today is mortgage interest rates.
Well, it's good. It's good news. I wanted to address one other thing with the doctor that Mark Tarbell mentioned, which is, you know, the weather gets better and people come back, but then the schools and the reopening of schools, through our company that we have Healthy Verified certification, we just actually certified Avondale Public Schools to come back with a whole procedure and plan. And the doctor that's our medical director indicated that there's really very little spread from children to children or children to teachers. And so this school reopening is something that seems quite positive. And if you look around the world and you look at other cases, you know, where childcare or schools have opened, there's just less than 1% of the spread is within these younger populations. What are your thoughts on the school reopening? And I should say our kids go to school together, and boy, I hope they're back because my kids are getting way too good at video games.
Jordan, I agree with you. I want my kids back in the school. I'm kind of desperately waiting for that. But so I'm not sure about kids to adult transmission, and I don't know compared to adult. All I can tell you is amongst kids, we don't see severe disease. So we don't see children having severe outcomes as much. So statistically, kids are doing much better. The concern is if the kids pass it on to the teachers or staff, and that kind of results in other, community spread, then the question again comes back to clogging the hospital system. So the whole, the fear was not so much that we will get infection. I think we probably, most likely the way it is, most of us will end up having this infection and most of us will do well. But the question is, people who are getting sick are enough to clog the hospital system. So that's where the concern is. So I think openings of the school really have to depend on statistically where we are as a state and what's happening in our hospital systems. And if we have more beds that are opening up, more staff that's actually able to help patients. I'm all for opening schools because I do think that kids should go back to school, but under very, very strategic and very strict precautions, because we don't want to put our teachers or staff at risk either.
Thank you, Doctor. Court, what do you got?
Yeah, with the doctor, I'll stick with it for a minute here. I had a question for you. I'm wondering, what's the thought on, are we more likely to have an effective treatment, or are we more likely to have a vaccine, or who knows if we'll have either? Which one will be first? What are your thoughts there?
So I think the vaccine, I'm sure you've heard in news, so many different companies all over the world are working on this vaccine. So there's a lot of hope. There is one from England that actually is really looking very hopeful. The problem with getting a vaccine out to everyone is trials. You do have to go through these hoops of trials, safety measures before it's made available to public. So I do think that there is a little bit of hope in the medications and treatments. The recent data on remdesivir, the antiviral treatment, there's some data on steroids that is really, really hopeful, because some of the intensive care patients are responding very well to the antiviral treatments. So I think that we might be able to take the treatments right now and help people before the vaccine comes out in the market. The vaccine is there. It just needs to be tried out enough to ensure safety.
Court, I know you've got other questions, but I just had a text from my mother, and so you got to interrupt and you got to ask those questions.
I think I got the same text, by the way. I know what you're about to say.
Because we have the same mother. Okay.
Weird.
So yeah, weird. So she says, can we travel by airplane? What is your thought on that? Give us to like 2 minutes of that. And I think they're because they really like to travel.
Sure. I think travel, that's a great question, Jordan. So I can tell you that airplanes is where it's probably a high risk place, because it's a, closed circuit. There is no open air. So that with all precautions, I guess you could travel, but I can tell you that if I have to go drive with my family or fly, I would prefer driving at this time, because when you are in a plane with closed air, same air circulating, even with masks and with those shields, it's still a high risk place compared to some other ways of transportation. So I would say a drive to San Diego is much better than flying to New York.
Ohio, for
okay,
example.
guys, you're going to have to drive to Ohio or stay here with us. That's how it's going to go now. Okay, Court, go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, Chris, speaking of COVID-19, let's talk about land some more. So I've been.
That wasn't a good transition, by the way.
Well, I was trying to underscore how it's impossible to do that transition. So
I did it.
Yeah, well, unspoken. You didn't even try. So you are fortunate enough to own land in the Johnson Utilities service territory, and or unfortunate enough as it may be. And I know a lot of folks that are in the development home building community have been watching that really closely. And it's Southeast Valley, for those of you who may not know where that is, probably one of the fastest growing housing markets in the state, and the utility is unable to provide service to a lot of the area there. What are you guys, what are you doing to deal with that situation? What's your current thought on it? It seems like every day something else happens and landowners are stuck in the middle of this fight between the corporation commission and the utility. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Court, we're following your lead. We're looking forward to you solving it.
I'm trying.
We're working very closely with Johnson and EPCOR. Everything we've done to date has, been an attempt to have both entities sign off on it. We are very hopeful that one of our developments will be kicking off here in August. That's in the heart of that area. We believe we've got some solutions that help the overall system, whether it be an influx of water into their system or just some infrastructure that'll help connect parts of their system that'll help the flows. For us, it's the whole issue to us right now is who's in charge and who is actually leading. We know who owns the company, and we know who the courts to date have said is in charge, but there's still two different trains out there that are trying to do two different things to the system. And so for those that don't know much about the whole situation in the Southeast Valley there within JU's utility area, CCNN, we're waiting for a Supreme Court decision that we hope will bring clarity to that. For us, it's not necessarily who's in charge. It's just knowing who can actually make the decisions, and we can work with them in whatever capacity they feel is the right direction to go. We're not experts in the utility business. We're not trying to tell people exactly how it should be built. We just want to be able to rely on a master plan that says if we start developing in this direction, it will fit into the plans that the overall system is striving to achieve. So for us, it's that clarity of just who's in charge. But we will continue as best we can to be Switzerland, right in the middle. We're not looking to put a stamp on one side or the other in terms of who should be in charge. We just want to be told who's in charge so we can work with them. And until then, we're going to work with both groups and continue to try to sort that out. So where we are again with our development that should kick off in August is agreement on both sides from EPCOR and from Johnson Utilities. And we're going to just try to keep doing that. The further south you go, the more problems you run into. And we've got another large development down on the south side of Arizona Farms Road. And quite frankly, we don't have a solution in sight for that yet. And in all the meetings that you're a part of, we're trying to reiterate that when we're talking about a solution, it's got to be a solution that plays out for the entire utility, not just a certain piece of it. Even though that, picking winners and losers, we're in each one of those different pieces. So, every part that we're talking about is helpful to us. There are people that aren't in each one of those pieces, and you've got to make sure that you got a solution across the board for what the future of that utility design is going to be.
And for those that maybe don't, what does this mean to me? We're talking about the difference in time frames of development for this that are, it'll cost the state of Arizona hundreds of millions of dollars in revenues and economic activity and jobs if they can't figure this out and can't, get these pieces of land moving forward and deal with this utility problem. So
and it's like thousands of acres, right? It's thousands of acres. Yeah.
It's tens of thousands of acres. It's every major home builder and every major public, even some of the smaller ones. It's every major developer. It's every major landowning family. It's small landowning families. It's not a one person issue. It's an entire sector of our home building. Jim Belfiore could probably tell you even more about who all is wrapped up in this, but it's a very large contingent of the development community.
And
for
Court,
sure.
you're solving that problem. That's what you're doing.
I hope to solve that problem. Yeah, it's definitely a big problem. We're working on it. But yeah, there's some possibilities here soon, hopefully. Right. Well, Jim, on that front, do you have like specific numbers? I catch you off guard on this, but or info on how that's starting to impact that area? It is. It has the potential to be the fastest, if not, one of the fastest growing areas in Arizona, meaning one of the fastest in the country. Are you seeing the numbers shake out and the stress that it's putting on the market?
Well, what I'd say is, that area is kind of, it's been an island since it's been an issue, right? But demand surrounding is over the top hot. We had, Queen Creek, I look back, 2012, there were, and this is, you guys know, right when the market sort of had a false start and started to come back, there were 9 actively selling communities in Queen Creek and the Santan Valley. So, from not including Florence, but, heading towards Queen Creek, and Queen Creek, there were 9 actively selling subdivisions. Today, there are 61. There were 67 last week, right? It is, that area is the place to be. You go to where Chris's deal is, El Dorado's deal, where all the lots have now been purchased at, what is it, Ocotillo and what's the cross street, Chris?
Signal Butte.
Signal Butte and Ocotillo.
Signal Butte and Ocotillo.
That's right. That is the epicenter of development. And now you have, Fulton coming out with Barney Farms. You have Maracay, who's purchased, I believe, Madera next door to the north of you guys. You have new schools. It is crazy, and still we don't have enough supply to meet demand. And so, I know you guys, Court, have been on the forefront of that battle, and it's a battle that we need to get through as soon as possible, because we need to unlock land and lots and deliver it, because the market wants to live there. That area, when I talk about Arizona and, people come and they say, what's driving it? If we went back 12, 13 years ago, as Ironwood Crossing was starting to be developed, Fulton Homes was one of the first builders to attract a charter school in their community. And it drove up prices, despite it being the downturn and the Great Recession. It drove prices up 20% above everybody anywhere near them within 4 or 5 miles, right? They were able to sell homes so much at such a higher price. That area is the epicenter for charter school development, and it's raised the quality of both public and private schools and charter schools. It's raised the quality to levels that nobody could have dreamed of 10 or 12 years ago. So it's a great area, and I think I think it's going to continue to be, but we need to find ways to bring more lots to market. And one of those ways is to solve this problem, Court.
Thanks, Jim. Hey, I know, Court, you probably have a question, but I just had to note that at the outset of this, when I said happy birthday to Court and my dad, because he's 75, some guy, Paul, says, you raised a good kid. And then he says, I mean kids. And I thought he was complimenting me. Like, I was like, oh yeah, that was nice. But now I see that Paul is complimenting Court very directly. So thanks. Yeah, that's really good. So I'm
gonna have to check out the chat then. All right, let's see.
Point that out, that it was all about you, buddy.
All right.
That's good.
So I was gonna go to Mark real quick. And I guess I wonder, you're in a unique position. Your way of life, your business has been identified as a potential, source of more of this spreading. And we've seen how gyms have reacted when they've been put in this position lately. The gyms, at least a few of them locally, pushed back against the governor, said, screw it, I'm staying open anyway. And I wonder, what's your feeling on that as a business owner? Obviously, you need to make a living. You need to keep your employees employed, keep your customers happy. But if the governor were to say shut down again to you, do you think you individually or the restaurateurs in general would be in a position to say, screw it, we're ignoring that and push back? Or what do you think about that issue?
Well, Court, if you were representing me, I'd do whatever I wanted to. So, but seriously, it's a good question. I mean, we've already made a preemptive decision to go in delivery. And for us, it's basically the long view. I can't speak for everyone else. I do think people have a right to do what they want. And I think what would be great, of course, is all decisions be made purely from an apolitical medical point of view, because this is more of a medical issue rather than a political or social issue. I do agree with the doctor. There are a lot of social and emotional stressors that are happening as a result of this. And then we all know what potentially could happen to the economy if it isn't already. But, for us in the restaurant business, we are, it's a very difficult business anyway, but, we're also very public. And, truthfully, we're probably, if we're operating completely within the boundaries and being ultra safe, we're as safe or unsafe as any other place you can go as a human. So I think it's, for me, potentially, if you're going to do this, you have to be extreme. And I don't think that's realistic. For us to shut down, not a big deal for a lot of restaurants. They're already kind of shutting down slowly right now. And I think they're grinding down. So this is just all about how long this lasts. And I just hope it doesn't last very long. But I really think that, it's tough for everybody right now. We're doing great, but, I know it's very tough.
Thanks, Mark.
What was the question?
No, I think that was.
It was a good answer, whatever the question was. Irrelevant. Hey, Jim, I wanted to ask you, what are the hottest market areas right now, or what will be?
Yeah, well, we talked about Queen Creek, that on Highway Santan Valley, but I'll tell you the freeway. What's interesting is the freeway, and I know Mike Sunix wrote about this last week or the week before. I know the Phoenix Business Journal is going to publish something. That the freeway, the 202, the Loop 202 and the Loop 303, the construction of those and opening has just driven demand out of the sky. Newest submarket in metropolitan Phoenix area that just had new openings at the beginning of June is right there at Australia and the Loop 202. So it's right around Carver Mountain. You have a few new communities. Taylor Morrison's open, D.R. Horton's open, Ashton Woods is set to open. Meritage Homes has started selling homes. They sold more homes than any builder in that area, like 33 or 34 in a period of like 23 days. And they don't even have site improvements complete. So unbelievable, very affordable housing in the mid 200s to low 300s. And then the Loop 303, we've had about 22 new home communities open north of Loop 303, right around Jackrabbit, east of Dorado. As you go up 303 north towards Surprise, from Surprise and south, you just have every home builder in the metropolitan Phoenix area, big builder, and some smaller builders that have opened up. And while absorptions per community aren't, over the top crazy, if you accumulate demand in those communities, it's unbelievable. Great sales. And hats off to those builders and, recognizing what's going on. There's a lot of land in play in that area too. So, but honestly, every area is doing really, really well. South Buckeye, we just did a study out there. Resale supply in South Buckeye today, that's south of Interstate 10. I think it's 85326. Resale supply is at 2.5 weeks today. Normal supply there, 3 to 4 months. 2.5 weeks worth of supply. You know what that means for home builders? It's like open your doors and they come in, right? So it's just a great time to be selling homes, I think, for the home builders, outside of the precautions we have to take and the challenges with getting people to be able to see houses. But I think it seems like it's feast or famine, and right now is a feast time, so hopefully everybody's making the most of it.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, so I'm going to go around the horn as we and don't leave right when it ends, because we have a special surprise. This is even more special than before, I promise you. And I'll go around the horn and talk. I want to know, what do you wish to happen here, and what will we be talking about with your respect to your, area of business in a month from now? What will we be talking about? Your prediction a little bit, short-term prediction, okay? But first I had to note, everybody knows Mark Tarbell, he's a movie star, right? Total movie star. So that's really cool that you would take the time to be here. Quick question is, are you still making that PBS Plate and Pour show? Is that going on, or what's going on with that?
Well, it's obviously, we're pushing back production for season 3 because of the station being closed and no one able to work there. But we're in talks all week to plan for season 3 and come up with some other digital platforms and some other exciting things. So a lot of exciting talks this week. And I think it's also very important to start talking about restaurants and a lot of great stories, a lot of innovation, a lot of bad stories and tragic things. But I think there's a lot to talk about in our Arizona restaurant business going forward. So yes.
And
I think I'm still a movie star.
I don't mean to be a sales pitch for this guy because he doesn't need me to pitch anything, but like if you haven't experienced the takeout experience from Mark Tarbell and what he's done with Tarbell's, you just need to get online and check this out because it's amazing. You'll feel like you'll just feel like you're in a real restaurant, but you'll be at your house, and I don't know, it's kind of
Thank
amazing.
you.
So
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's obviously delicious. Okay, so Chris, we'll start with you. What do you wish would happen, and in 30 days, what would we be talking about? In 1 minute or less, by the way. You have literally 45 seconds or less, everybody.
What I wish would happen would be COVID disappears. I mean, obviously that's number one, and let us get back to where we were January, February, to take the caboose off this thing. Realistically, what I hope to see in the next 30 days is some kind of consistency in how we report what's going on out there. I think the biggest issue is there's an unknown of really what this virus is doing, how we're able to combat it. One thing that works one day doesn't seem to work the next day. Just consistency in the numbers of understanding how we're reporting, what we're reporting, and what is truly going on. I don't foresee that happening for probably a year where we can look back and truly have analyzed this. But we're trying to understand everything in a vacuum, and it's difficult.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. That was a long 45 seconds, but I got it.
The shot clock went
No,
off.
it was really good. It was really good. That was the stop talking. Okay, doctor, what do you wish? What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
I agree with Chris, and I hope that we can say COVID is a history. But Jordan, my hope is that we have something in terms of treatments that come up in the next 4 weeks. Based on statistics in other cities and countries, it looks like in 4 weeks, based on those numbers, we should be trending downwards and plateauing just based on how New York was. So I'm leaving you with a very positive note. I hope that next time we meet, that I have a lot more positive news and I'm not this, pessimistic kind of dark person here on the panel. So.
Your reality, and we appreciate what you're doing. So thank you for that. Mark, let's go to you.
I'm going with a doctor. I say, by the 15th to the end of July, we see our peak at the 15th and a 14-day decline. All restaurants are open full capacity by the 15th of August. And between the 15th and August, all schools are open, and parents are no longer teachers and breadwinners and every other thing, and school cafeteria. Oh, and by the way, in our home, we have a little bit of that detention situation that we have to trade off on. Some of our kids go into detention, but all kidding aside, I'm hoping we do see some sort of pattern of decline by the end of the month, and that we can all start to begin to contemplate how to get back to normal, get back in business by the time school starts and weather gets good, and we have a rockin' good time this winter.
Rockin' good time we'll look forward to. And I didn't mention, thank you, Mark, who is a movie star. The Jim Belfiore is actually a movie star too. Some of you may have heard him on his movie just this morning. So Jim, what's your thought?
Well, I echo everything that everybody else has said really on the disease front. On the housing side, while I'm the biggest cheerleader, as you know, Jordan, for our clients, home builders, developers, really for the industry here. I think I really hope we can figure out how to deliver more supply to the market. Not because everybody wants to make a ton more money, although we all wish we had more money. The reality is that prices at this point could accelerate upward so quickly that in a couple of years we could regret it. So we need to figure out how to bring supply to market that's affordable quicker so that we don't create a problem for the future. But I'm optimistic about the direction. We need to get more labor here, and we need to get more folks building homes so we can fill the need.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, panelists. You guys were amazing. I want to thanks the audience for coming back. And because it is our dad, Jeff Rich's 75th birthday, DJ Peabody is going to, he's created a special, and Dad, you'll really appreciate this because I know Pure Energy was your favorite group. Probably never heard of it, but anyhow, he's created this Pure Energy custom B-Day remix. and we've got Marilyn Monroe. So nobody go away. Go ahead, DJ Peabody, take it away, and happy birthday to our favorite person, Jeff Rich.
Pure energy. Pure energy. Every day is your birthday and I hit the floor. Every day is your birthday and I hit the floor. Every day is your birthday and I hit the floor. Hit the floor. I said, ow.